Oh, don't worry, GB1. I'll be a lot safer with this one. And plus, our friends are here. Hey everyone, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone, and that firearms expert over there is GB1. I'm not going to use it as a door opener. You use a shotgun once, and you never hear the end of it. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Metal Earth Revolver from the new Wild West series. And this guy looks really awesome with all of its cool color and curves. You can tell that this Wild West series was definitely inspired by the Red Dead Redemption group of models we got a few years back. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. With all of the detail and again, really cool color, these models are a welcome addition to the family. But what kind of tools do you need to build a revolver? Can this paint withstand all of the bending? And can we build this in a reasonable amount of time? Those are some good questions. Let's get down to the workbench and look at the package together.
Groove Builders, welcome to the workbench. We have our Metal Earth Revolver in some really awesome Wild West packaging. And I gotta say, this model looks really cool with all of its detail and of course coloring. I wonder how it's all gonna come together though. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back. On the back we get a good look at our finished model, followed by a difficulty rating here of just over medium. Then just below we have some instructions on how to build our model, and on the right here we have a QR code which we can scan to get a 360 look at our model while we're building. This comes in handy when we're adding little bits of detail onto our build, or also trying to see how those difficult parts are shaped. Finally, at the bottom we get a good look at some other models in the series, and you better believe we're going to be building these. Alright Groovers, let's go ahead and open up our package. We have our instructions, and we have our metal. There's definitely a lot of detail here with all the color and of course etched detail, but I will say the color looks a little bit different than it did on the box. I wonder how this is going to look when it's all together.
With everything out, let's take a look at our instructions. Okay, we have 3 pages, and boy, this detail does look a little crazy, especially with some of these curves over here. And also it looks like we have some parts that might be hard to put together over here. And finally, the handle looks like it could be a little tricky too because of all those parts coming together. This will be a little nerve-wracking, but don't worry, we have all the tips and tricks needed in this video to help you successfully complete this project. But before we get too far into it, we need to talk about the basics of metal model building for all those new builders out there. First things first, these 3D metal model kits require us to cut out our pieces, then shape them using whatever we can. Once we have a part correctly shaped, we can connect them together by bending and twisting our tabs. The best way to bend or twist our tabs is indicated in the instructions by these circles and triangles. Personally, I try to follow the instructions the first time when it comes to bending our tabs if I can. Then, when the build is complete, I'll go over the whole thing again and change any tabs that might stand out. I like to make my tabs as invisible as possible. That's how we get that museum quality you hear so much about.
Next up, we have our tools. Now, what tools are needed to build a revolver? That's a good question. I think it's time to ask our resident tool expert. Oh, Timothy?
What? Oh, hello, I am Timothy, the tool expert. Analysis of instructions indicates highest probability of success using nippers, tweezers, mandrills, tapping punches, and pliers.
Wow, that's a pretty good list there, Timothy. Great job for your first time. Now, Groovers, these are just our recommendations, and you really don't need anything but nippers and tweezers to get the job done. But of course, having the right tools will make it a lot easier for you, especially with all the little bits of detail we're going to be forming. Okay, we've looked at our instructions and we have all of our tools. There's only one thing left to do. Are you stuck in a rut, feeling a little bit bent, lost in your instructions? Hi, I'm Dr. Disorderly Cone, and this is my bottle of Like and Subscribe. With Like and Subscribe, we can find a cure for all of your metal model needs. That's right, with just 2 clicks of Like and Subscribe, you'll find happiness at the end of your tweezers. Don't let this offer pass you by. Like and subscribe now. Seriously. I'm waiting. Good job! Alright, let's get to the build.
This little revolver looks awesome on the package, but with its unique curves, it will definitely have you second guessing your skill level.
The first thing I want to talk about when it comes to building our revolver is forming those curves, and that's with pieces 10, 27, and 37. With part 10, I started out by bending both sides first, but only slightly. Then I used my tab bending tool to get a nice curve in the middle of the piece. When part 10 looked like it was ready, I moved it over into position and began to work it into place, starting with the curve section to make sure I got it just right. After a quick double check for gaps, I was ready to move on. Similarly, for part 27 and 37, it's important to take your time and use the connecting detail to guide your shaping. This is very helpful for part 27. The little hammer at the back has a very small rounded tip, and if you're not careful, you can very easily bend it in the wrong spot. To avoid this, use part 26 to help you figure out where the bends need to be. I recommend using the unbent part 27 and then connecting it to 26 at the bottom. As you work your way up, slowly bend 27 using 26 as your guide. When you get to the very top, you should have a good idea where that really serious bend needs to be for the hammer. This method is very effective, but may be a little bit finicky, so take your time. Lastly, part 37 should be shaped like part 10. Make sure to get a nice curve before moving on, and if you need to, you can use part 40 as your guide. But even with using parts as your guide, some parts feel like they don't want to go together, which brings us to my second point. Some of the pieces just don't fit that well together, like parts 22 and 25, and others are different than what's on the box. Starting with parts 22 and 25, they require us to make dome-like shapes. I recommend using a dapping tool to help you get a really nice rounded edge. I recommend taking your tool and then rubbing it into the part, increasing the pressure until you get the desired shape. I found with both parts 22 and 25 that no matter how hard I tried to get those gaps to go away, I just couldn't. In my full build video, I take the time trying to match these up the best I possibly can, and what I found was the cuts in the metal are just too big, and no matter how much shaping you actually do here, there's always going to be some small gaps. So knowing that, do your best to make the gaps as small as possible for a really nice finish. And speaking of finishes, one of the major things that surprised me about this model was the lack of accuracy to the picture on the box. Looking at the box, you can see things like a dark brown handle and a gold post holding up the revolver. But the metal on the inside of the box has a handle that's almost a reddish color, and the post is nowhere near gold. It's actually a pukey yellow color. Why they chose to change the paint colors here, I really don't know. But having a brass bit on the box and then getting this pukey yellow post was a little bit disappointing. The third and final thing we need to talk about is the handle on the revolver. This handle is made of 5 parts that, if not bent exactly the way they need to be, leaves massive gaps in your model. I found the best way to shape these handles was to use my doming tool like I did with parts 22 and 25. Once I got a good shape on my bigger pieces, I did the same thing with parts 41, 42, and 43. When it came time to put the handle together, I could match all the parts together and of course make any adjustments I needed before securing them together. Doing this was not easy, and I found myself getting very frustrated trying to get everything the way I liked it. The parts here are under some real stress as you move them around and try to get them into place, and if you're not careful, you can very easily break parts or tabs off the pieces. But where I got the most trouble was trying to hide the tabs. It seems almost impossible with the upper part of the handle of part 43. In the instructions, it tells us to bend the tabs down 90 degrees and then secure them into place. Well, that's a big misunderstanding of reality. It's near impossible to get the tabs of part 43 hidden because of the way the handle is shaped. I tried so hard to do it the way the instructions said, but man, I just couldn't do it. I ended up folding the tabs the other way around and securing them flat, but made sure to secure the rest of the tabs the way the instructions said. All in all, I think the handle turned out pretty good, and looking at this revolver after an hour and 30 minutes of building, I think it looks pretty good too. Except for that pukey yellow post.
And there we go, Groove Builders. We did it. We built the Wild West Revolver from Metal Earth. And this build is a little smaller than I thought it was going to be, but still pretty mighty. Now for the ultimate question. Does the Revolver from Metal Earth get the Groove Builder seal of approval? Ha! Yes, it does! Even though there's a few things I wish I could change about this model, like the color for instance. Yep, it does bother me. There are a few differences between the box and the final product, like this post here being a pukey yellow-green and the handle here being a kind of reddy color. It's not really that big of a deal, but it's still something to notice, and kind of disappointing that they didn't just put a brass piece in here. But outside of that, you know, forming this part, right, especially right here in the back where we have the drum and cylinder pieces, if you will, those pieces are a little bit bothersome. I mean, it seems like a lot of metal was taken out, and because of that, no matter how much shaping you can do, you still are going to have some gaps. And being that I'm a bit of a perfectionist in some of these things, seeing gaps kind of bothers me. I really can't recommend this model for new builders out there. There's just too many cylinders and small pieces that will really frustrate you if you haven't built one of these models before. But if you have a little bit of experience and are looking to make a Wild West collection, I would say Revolver is a really nice place to start. Alright, Groove Builders, that brings us to the end of our show. I had a really good time building the Revolver with you, and if you guys had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of really cool content coming out in the future. Want to help the channel grow? Check out groovebuilders.ca. We got all kinds of really cool Metal Earth models on there at great prices with fast shipping. Until next time, Groove Builders, keep building. Now I just gotta play with this safely. Oh no!